Welcome to Section 3. What is science? Biologist Edward O. Wilson observes fire ants at Harvard University in 1975. Wilson's studies of many ant species have yielded insights into biology that are relevant far beyond the insect realm. Professor Wilson's dedication to preserving biodiversity is the inspiration for this book. Science is a well-defined and organized approach to observing and understanding the natural world. Scientists begin by studying what others have learned previously about a topic that intrigues them. In their own research, scientists try to expand on that knowledge. They collect information, ask questions, and develop ideas about what they've observed. Then, they test those ideas. Moving on to page 21 here, we are starting off with the scientific method. So, the scientific method. Scientists, including biologists, employ the scientific method, a systematic procedure that begins with curiosity about something that intrigues them. To understand an observation, scientists frame a hypothesis, plural, hypotheses, a possible explanation for what was observed. Let's take a look at this picture, for example. So number 1 is an observation. Number 2 is a hypothesis. Number 3 is an experiment. And number 4 is a data analysis. Number 5 is a result. And number 6, a conclusion. Let's take a look at number 1, observation. So result may lead to new observations and new questions. Let's say you wake up in the morning, okay? And your cat, well, you don't know that first to start off with. So let's say you wake up in the morning and you're going into your bathroom and you're looking for your hairbrush, I guess you could say, and your hairbrush is missing. Well, we're making an observation to that about what happened to that hairbrush, and we're saying it was on the floor. We don't know. Well, then we come in the next day and the hairbrush is not there again. It's on the floor, same spot. What's going on here? Is there a ghost in my house? And you're looking on the third day, you walk in and the hairbrush is on the floor again. Then you walk in a fourth day and the cat's in there. And it's sitting right beside your hairbrush. We're making an observation that our cat is the one who actually knocked that over. That's a hypothesis. So we're basically using the scientific method in a whole separate way. We use it daily. If we're drinking water and all of a sudden it's just gone, we don't know where it went, we're making a hypothesis that we probably threw it out or probably already drank it. Or we're making a hypothesis that if we were looking for it in the refrigerator that we're all out of water or someone else drank it. Let's say you go for an Oreo and you know your sister the last day was eating the Oreo. And you go for one and you cannot find it. We're making a hypothesis that your sister ate all the Oreos. When really, who knows what could have happened to them? Somebody else could have ate them. We don't know. So number 3 was an experiment. Scientists will perform multiple trials of the experiment to confirm the result. Number 4, data analysis. Data may be analyzed by new methods yielding a different result or casting doubt on the initial result. So then we might be thinking like, okay, well, what if this could have happened instead of this? And then number 5, our result. And number 6, our conclusion. So the next step is to test the hypothesis through experiment. Analyze data that those experiments yield and review the results. This review can lead to a new hypothesis, a new experiment, or even a new analysis until the experimenter reaches a conclusion that a hypothetical explanation is supported or rejected, and even that conclusion can be challenged, setting off the process again. Experimentation. During a 5-year expedition aboard a British naval ship, the British naturalist Charles Darwin explored, collected, and recorded observations about many diverse life forms, laying the groundwork for what would become his theory of evolution. The publication of his findings in On the Origin of Species, 1859, was one of the most important events in human intellectual history. But that book was not Darwin's only contribution to science. Darwin owned land outside London, and toward the end of his life, he wanted to understand how soil built up on his unplowed fields. When he looked closely, he realized the soil resembled the excretions or castings of earthworms. He wondered if worms were a source of topsoil. He and 2 of his adult sons started investigating. They set up terrariums to observe worms closely and collected and weighed the worms' castings. In the castings, they found plant matter. They also found stone particles that apparently contributed to the grinding and digestion of the plant material after measuring the volume of material excreted by the worms and the density of the worms in the fields. Darwin and his sons concluded that worms are indeed instrumental in providing topsoil. The book he published in 1881 on his findings, The Formation of Vegetable, Wood, Though, The Actions of Worms, with observations on their habitats, was seized on by farmers of the time. In the last years of his life, it sold more copies than On the Origin of Species. When scientists conduct an experiment, they attempt to isolate variables, factors that can change. They want to test the effect of single independent variable, the condition that is being manipulated in an experiment, on a dependent variable. In a well-designed experiment, one of the trials is a control group in which the effect of the independent variable is eliminated. Another is an experimental group in which subjects are exposed to the independent variable. Here's an example of a well-crafted experiment. Biologists long wondered how lobsters, invertebrates with tiny brains, manage to maintain course during mass migrations from shallow to deeper waters in the western Atlantic Ocean. The spiny lobster Panurliderus agris scotus by the thousands in the right direction seaward. In single file formations, lobsters are also extremely good at finding their way in the dark back to daytime hiding spots, even after traveling significant distances to forage for food. So, movie 1.2, Lobster on the Move. Let's check this out. So, as we can see, this is a lobster on the move. We were able to see the lobster moving and how it's using its 2 thorns up on top of its head and its little tiny little hands on the bottom to feel for anything. And we can also notice that this lobster is also using these little tiny underarms under its eyes and more stuff on top of its eyes, like eyebrows. Those are sensors. They can sense different smells and they can sense things by. And you can also see their feet then moving as well. That's a lobster on the move. And on the right here, Interactive 1.4, Reliable Inquiry. So we can see Experiment 1. So both experiments began with broth made sterile by boiling. The first step was to demonstrate what happened when the broth was left open to the air. Okay. So, let's not look at the result yet, but let's go to Experiment 2, 3, and 4. So we can see then that they've been left open. And the conclusion is that organisms grow. So the conclusion was With Pasteur's final demonstration, most of Pasteur's critics fell silent. They now agree that he had disproved the doctrine of spontaneous generation. University of North Carolina biologist hypothesized that lobsters use Earth's magnetic field to find their way, just as birds and turtles do. Biologist Kenny Lawman and his research team netted lobsters off Key Largo in Florida and brought the crustaceans to an underwater experimental station. They covered the animals' eye stalks with tiny rubber caps and tethered the animals with fishing line. In the range of an artificial magnetic field, they could control the tethered animals were free to walk in any direction. When the researchers activated their artificial magnetic field, the manipulated independent variable, most of the lobsters changed direction. Their direction being the dependent variable, the scientists concluded that a magnetic field influenced the direction of spiny lobsters. Interactive 1.4 showed a similarly systematic test of a hypothesis. Its time, a series of 4 experiments, each a refinement of the previous one, that famously disproved a long-held idea that life could appear spontaneously. Scientific theory. In practice, the scientific method leads to a scientific theory. In science, the definition of the word theory differs importantly from its everyday use. A scientific theory is a hypothesis that has been tested repeatedly and is supported by considerable evidence. Many scientific theories are so well established that no new evidence is likely to discredit them. No new evidence will show that the living things are not made of cells, the cell theory, or that the surface of Earth is not divided into solid plates that move over time. The theory of tectonic plates. The theory of evolution is one of the theories that has been tested in so many ways that is beyond challenge. Evolution is supported by countless observations in genetics, fossil studies, field studies, and many other types of research. Scientists accept it as the explanation for how life developed and diversified on Earth. Like all scientific theories, however, the theory of evolution is subject to refinement as new findings are made, new areas of science emerge, and new technologies enable new experiments. One of the great characteristics of science is that it is self-correcting. As reliable new observations are made, scientists adjust their explanations. Theory informs research, and research informs theory. So go ahead, pause the video right now, and read on the right side, right here on the right, starting at good science and ending at and debate. At the bottom of page 24, read the right side to yourself. So moving on to page 25, the ancestor of land vertebrates, Ptytarchus was likely a fish with a flexible neck and front fins that climbed out of the fresh water. So on our next video, we will continue in section 4, Life on Earth Today. So I will see you in number class 4 for section 4, Life on Earth Today. Life on Earth talks about many different things of biology of Earth, the forests, the city of the Earth, water scarcity, and it talks about so much and it is so big. Then we go on to what is life, review, and we continue on with different ones until we hit chapter 2, which is the chemistry of life. So, please get yourself ready. Make sure you have your note paper, pencil, pen, marker, whatever you would like, and I'll see you in our next class video for section 4, Life on Earth Today. If you have any questions, please comment down below.